Presented on the Keep Our Courts Do Developmentally Differently campaign, and that we got involved with a coalition of groups from the neighborhood that included the Homeless Coalition, Black Lives Matter Cincinnati, Over the Rhine Community Housing, Children's Creative Corner, Rothenberg School, am I leaving somebody out? And Permaganic Garden. Because a huge tract of land, just a block and a half away from here, and that is directly across the street from Rothenberg Elementary, our elementary school here in the neighborhood, only public elementary school here in the neighborhood school, was slated. There was a big development that was slated to happen that would, as phase one, would eliminate the public basketball courts and the community garden as phase one, and then build 21 single-family homes with 2-car garages at a $500,000 price point to replace that public space and land that the community had loved and cared for as an asset and still used for many, many years. Peaslee got involved as an educational anchor here, mostly because our kids came and asked us how something like that could happen, and we said, well, let's go find out. So a few years later into that campaign, we were successful in that campaign as a coalition and in stopping that development from happening. But we weren't just about wanting to stop what was happening. We were wanting to have and be anti-development. We wanted development and things that could happen for our own community and where people who live in the community can say what's going to go there. So that's how we kind of got started with this work, with residents being included at the table on figuring out what is going to go into their community. What do we see as the problem? What we see as the problem is uneven development. That the real estate industry develops for profit and distributes resources unevenly across space in our city. So if you have a hot market, then a lot of capital goes there, right? But then in other communities don't get that those same levels of investment. Then there's a lack of public capital. So in some communities, after years and years and years of investment in our city, it's very challenging for our local government to have the resources to renovate and invest in spaces alone. So, so what do we do in response to that? What is our city's response to that? Is to do kind of generous public subsidy giveaways in order to encourage development back into the city. At this point, and looking at just kind of like over the Rhine, folks may have said that 15 years ago we needed to highly incentivize folks to come into development in this neighborhood. It would be very hard pressed for anyone to say that that is still necessary, because everyone wants to develop here and everyone wants to put their own capital in. Have we changed at all what we ask for or what we give away as our public taxpayer money? We have not. We have not changed that behavior. And so how does that impact folks who live here now and who live in other cities? So we feel like and all of you in this room care about this, and these are things that are being talked about all across the city in many different groups and lots of different ways. But we need to better account for the value of our public assets and not underestimate what we have to give as a city. As a city, we have these big goals of inclusion. We have these big goals of all the things we're going to do for all of our citizens. But we continue to say, well, we can't really do anything about the 40,000 unit deficit of housing over here. It's too expensive. But we can give away $35 million. It's not in the budget, no problem. So how does that get worked on? We believe that you have to strategically raise the bar. So I already kind of mentioned that some neighborhoods don't need incentives for development to occur, other ones do. And we need to incentivize better development that prioritizes not allowing gentrification and displacement to happen. So Jen's going to talk more about our framework There are lots of folks in our city who are talking about kind of some top-down processes for how to do this, how to have equity, how to have us be an all-in city, right? Peaslee, based on our experience coming out of the organizing in Maine and Schiller and with the coalition and our mission to do educational work, we wanted to get tools into the hands of residents across the city so that they have a way to ask good questions of folks who are coming to do development in their neighborhood, and to have a real clarity about what's being developed, and to create some way to measure that, because that's very challenging to do. And often the spaces that get developed and the people who live right next to them are the last people to know what's happening with the development. So this tool, Jen's going to talk about more, and has done a lot of amazing work, and this is the fourth public input session, right, to get people's feedback about it.
Do you want